All right. Let's see what we got going here. Are we live? Let's take a look. Zoom software to go live. Should be cooking here. Let's see here. Let's edit this up here. Let's go public. Hey all, I'm just getting set up here. Sorry, running a little late this evening. Kind of got sidetracked, so I'm running a little bit behind schedule. I do apologize. I shouldn't have even come on until I had this all done. Vigilante. We're going to be talking about the Vigilante shooter in Kenosha briefly. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. Going to give you an update. I'm in South Carolina. I'm going to give you a quick update on some stuff that I'm finding out here regarding COVID-19. And we're just going to save that. I'll edit this up later. I have a weird thing going on with my channel here because I know I've got, oh, there we go. I said I know I've got at least one viewer here, but it's not showing up. So there we go. All right. Looks like we're up and running now. Okay. Hey, sorry about that. Let me, I'll get the chat on here in just a sec. Not that anybody's got anything to say, but we will in just a sec. Let's get in here. Like I said, I was going to talk about the, for Pete's sake, Brian. I was going to talk about the rest of the shooter here in Kenosha. Very unfortunate situation we've got going on here. Let's see here. Nope, that's not what we want. Yeah, there we go. Let me bring this story up. There we go. Man, I'm all kinds of discombobulated today. So, for those of you who are keeping up in Kenosha, another shooting. I shouldn't say another shooting. This is separate from, obviously, from the police shooting. So, there's been this violence ongoing. And yesterday I talked about it with the, the fires. They lit the car dealership on fire. This typical looting, rioting, the typical violence. A man was assaulted. An old man was assaulted trying to defend his property. So this is what's going to start happening. I talked yesterday also about the Proud Boys up in Portland, up in Portland, wherever you are from Portland, showing up and standing up to Antifa out there, and how the police in that scenario essentially just stood aside. For those of you who aren't keeping up with Portland, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the state patrol police had come into Portland to help quell the violence there. And then the district attorney there, as they're arresting these rioters, the district attorney there is not putting these people behind bars. He's not even charging them. It's essentially a catch and release. So the state police told the city of Portland, screw you, and they left. So now the police are completely overmatched up there. And at the end of the day, the police's primary role is to protect government buildings. They're going to put that ahead of the citizens. You can look at court case after court case. The police have no obligation to protect you. And this is going to happen. As these riots keep going on the way they are, eventually people are going to turn to vigilantism. That's what's going to happen. And this, I'm telling you, is the first of what I'm afraid is going to start being a pretty common occurrence, which is armed vigilantes going up there and say what you want. Their goal is to go up there and protect people's property. So Kyle Rittenhouse, 17-year-old kid, arrested on Wednesday in his hometown of Antioch, Illinois, and charged with first-degree intentional homicide following the shooting death of two protesters. The complaint says the teenager fled the state of Wisconsin with the intent to avoid prosecution. He's got a public defender in Illinois for a hearing on Friday upon his extradition to Wisconsin, where anyone 17 or older is recognized as an adult in the criminal justice system. Excuse me. Dramatic video captured the moment one victim was shot in the head and another was shot in the chest shortly before midnight on Tuesday. A third man was shot in the arm, but he survived. Now, I have not watched this video from all angles. I've seen post after post of people on Facebook saying that you have to watch all the videos from all the angles because it looks like he was acting in self-defense. I'm not going to make that claim. I don't know. I have not watched all the videos. If anybody out there has, please let me know what you think. You can message me here at the channel or whatever. I'd love to know what your thoughts are if you've actually watched the whole thing. But the idea is that this kid was acting in self-defense. I don't know about that, but I can say that these protesters, these rioters have gone violent. They have burned and destroyed property. If he's standing on property and people are threatening to burn it, I mean, is he acting in self-defense? It's not his property. I don't know. I don't know the laws. I'm not a lawyer, and I haven't watched all the videos. My primary concern or my primary thought on this is that this is what's going to start happening. And part of me believes that this is the goal of these rioters, is to incite this kind of Civil War-esque violence in these cities. They want the right to come out and incite this kind of violence, to shoot, to kill. And the soldiers on the ground of the rioters are very much expendable to the people organizing this. They had to know at some point this was going to happen. You got people going into rural communities. You got people going into neighborhoods. People are going to get shot and killed. People are going to get hurt. And the people organizing this know that that's going to happen. That's the intent. So very sad story. With a 17-year-old who may have been well-intentioned but probably misguided. Very much so. Kills 2 people. His life's over, you know. This is the kid. Kyle Rittenhouse. There he is, attempting to surrender to police who didn't even take him into custody, which is a whole nother story where it's like, oh, if he was black, he'd be dead and all this stuff. And hey, man, say what you want. NFAC, which is not effing around crew, we're marching around making overt threats, carrying long guns. It's not about race like everybody wants to make it out to be, but whatever. So here he is among the volunteers spotted earlier on Tuesday cleaning graffiti from a high school near the Kenosha County Courthouse following another night of unrest in the city. He's a kid seeking a purpose. I think he's very similar to the rioters, probably. He's just a kid seeking a purpose, and that's a real problem. Witness accounts and video show that the shootings took place in 2 stages. The gunman first shot someone at a car lot, then jogged away, stumbled, and fell in the street, and opened fire again as members of the crowd closed in on him. Police apparently then let the young man walk past them with a rifle over his shoulder with his hands in the air. As for why the gunman was allowed to leave, Sheriff David Beth on Wednesday portrayed a chaotic, high-stress scene with screaming, chanting, nonstop radio traffic, and people running all over the place, conditions that can cause tunnel vision among law officers. First. Second, in Wisconsin, open carry is not against the law. It's an open carry state. And even if it's not an open carry state, I still think that you're allowed to carry long rifles open there. So technically walking on the street with a rifle, if his hands are over his head, the police wouldn't have stopped him. And yes, they also wouldn't have stopped him if he was a black man, no matter what you may think. Rittenhouse, identified in court papers as a lifeguard at a YMCA in Lyndhurst, Illinois, was assigned a public defender in Illinois for a hearing on Friday. Cell phone video showed the ordeal unfold. I'm not going to replay the video. I know that one actually played here. That was not my intent. I'm not going to replay the videos. Oops, we're going to scooch on by here. There's some still shots. It's a bad scene. I mean, it's a bad scene. There's no... This is what's going to happen. This is what happened to, you look at Garrett Foster. On the other side of this, right? He's with the Black Lives Matter people, marching with his gun. This is what happens. They're going to keep this up. People are going to keep getting shot. People are going to keep getting killed. This stuff is going to escalate, and it's going to get worse. I'm not going to show this. This is at the car dealership. So, look, if you want to form a full opinion of it, from my understanding is it's important to go and watch all the videos. That's what I've seen. I have not watched all the videos. I don't know if I'm going to. I probably will, but my point is that this has to end, or it's going to get way, way worse. It's going to get way worse before it gets better. That's for sure. Another thing is my wife sent me a story, and I'll see if I can pull it up here. Clemson is apparently issuing citations for mask violations. So that's interesting, because I want to know what happens if I don't pay it. So let's see here. City of Clemson issues ordinance requiring face masks in public. I know that they have handed out some citations as well. So this is the mandates. And at the end of the day, I reached out to somebody, or I should say somebody reached out to me on another platform, and they told me that they work in an ICU, and that the ICUs are actually getting very close to capacity where they are. And as a result, you have to look at, I'm not a person who's going to ever agree with a national mask mandate. I don't ever think that's going to be, I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think our government has that authority. So I'm not necessarily going to support a national mask mandate. I personally look at the spread of COVID-19 as an inevitability. So I think when people say you're being selfish because you're not wearing a mask, I think it's a little foolish, because the bottom line is it's a virus with no vaccine and no immunity. It's going to spread. And in some ways, the faster it spreads, the better, because you can only keep the people who are at high risk for this, you can only keep them isolated and locked away for so long. At some point, they are not going to be able to be kept separate from society. So it really is important for people like myself. I'm in my 40s. I'm healthy. I run on a regular basis. I'm a healthy weight. It's important for people like me who have a very, very, very high odds of survivability, not just survivability, but that this thing won't even be serious for me. It's very important that people like me are exposed to this and build up some kind of immunity, so that we can we're building a wall of protection around the people who are vulnerable. It's important for that to happen. So in some ways, the mask mandates are counterintuitive, because they're slowing that spread to the point where, how long are we going to keep grandma and grandpa locked away in the home? How long are we going to keep people with, compromised immune systems locked in their houses? How long are we going to keep people who have, I know people who have to take, people who are on MS, who have to take immunosuppressing medication. How long are we going to be able to keep these people separated from society? We need to build that wall of immunity. It needs to happen. Well, I understand the risk, but we have to understand that the risk is there whether you're wearing the mask or not, because it's going to spread. We're trying to slow the spread. So what's the purpose? The purpose of the mask mandates and the purpose of mask wearing in general is to keep as it was said from the very beginning, was to keep the number of people in need of intensive care below the capacity of healthcare. So I've done a little research on this myself, very little. I'm not a virologist. I'm not an epidemiologist. And I'm not giving medical advice by any stretch of the imagination here. But I have done a little bit of research on this on my own. And from what I can determine, it seems that 70 to 80% ICU capacity is actually the norm in the United States. It's normal for about 70 to 80% of our ICU beds to be occupied at any given time. I did not realize that. I would have thought much, much lower than that. So I find that very surprising. We've had a surge in cases, partially due to testing, partially due to relaxing the standards. You have to say both things are in some way responsible. So let's just real quick here. Cook says the city is working on sourcing 50,000 masks for businesses to use. Businesses can begin picking those masks up starting June 29th. Once enforced, violating the mandate could come with a fine of $25. How serious are they taking this? It's a $5 fine. Businesses who do not ensure employees have masks will be fined $100. The ordinance expires in 60 days unless council decides to renew or appeal it. So it's interesting. Excuse me. So it's interesting. The fine is relatively minimal. So what I decided to do was take a look here in South Carolina and say, what is the hospital bed utilization rate? And it looks like we're right there in the, we're at 76% of our ICU beds are occupied, and the inpatient beds are at 81%. Only about 12 or 25% of the beds in ICU are COVID related. And we have ventilators at 31.81% utilization. About 15% of those are COVIDs are ventilated. So COVIDs aren't representing a huge percentage of utilization, and we're within the margins, but you can also see that there's been a pretty significant uptick in the percentage of people infected. And so as a result, you could say, okay, we're getting close to the limit. Let's mask up and slow this thing down. Is that reasonable? I said, I've been a pretty strong anti-masker, but that's, from my perspective, that's more of a national or even a statewide mandate. Small local communities and small city councils can look at what's going on right in their own communities I think, and make a reasonable decision about whether or not people should be wearing masks. I think that's within the purview of local governments. So from my perspective, like I said, as long as it's small and it's local and that's where these things are coming from and they've got shelf lives, I'm fine with that. My concern is, like I said, if this thing goes national, we start having the federal government or state governments, it doesn't make sense for rural Wisconsin, where I'm from, and New York City to function the same way. And I see in rural Wisconsin, I might see the same 15, 20 people. There's not going to be this mass spread. It's going to spread very slowly there with or without masks. So as opposed to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where it's densely populated and it may spread faster. So local authorities, local governments have to take control and manage what's best for their own communities. That's why they are in the positions that they're in. So from my perspective, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a small local ordinance like this with a small fine to encourage people to wear masks to slow down the spread. I'm okay with that. There's some research that says masks aren't great. There's research that says masks may be harmful because they hold bacteria. I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to make those scientific arguments. And if you disagree with that, if it's just small local governments that are making these decisions, then you have the power to hold your small local government accountable, unlike the federal government. So I guess that's where I would stand on this. I'll wear a mask as we are spiking here. I could justify, putting on a mask and saying, all right, we got to flatten this out before we get too high in our ICU capacity, especially going into fall in the event there's a resurgence of flu. So it's reasonable. I don't like it, but we don't cut off our nose to spite our face either. And we got to do what's in the best interest of the population. If you look at the utilization back here, it was actually pretty low. So we are at the higher end. So, all right. So that's I just wanted to hit on that real quick. And then lastly, so the Milwaukee Bucks, for you basketball fans out there, the Milwaukee Bucks have chosen to not participate in the playoffs. Let's see here if I can find that story. Milwaukee Bucks boycott. There you go. Let's see how quickly that works. So the Milwaukee Bucks. All right. So the NBA is postponing the games. Milwaukee Bucks lead NBA boycott and protest over Jacob Blake shooting. The Milwaukee Bucks did not show up to practice this afternoon and are boycotting tonight's game in protest of the police shooting of Jacob Blake. I've gone over the Jacob Blake shooting. I think it's a tragedy that he died. Or not that he died, but that he was shot. I think it's gruesome. I think if you watch a man being shot in the back that many times, you're going to have a visceral reaction that is incredibly angry. And that's very understandable. I think that if you can calm yourself and look at the situation with some level of objectivity, you understand that he did fight his way free from police. He was tased. They did use non-lethal means to try and detain him. They were within their rights to attempt to detain him because he does have an active warrant, and it's not an active warrant for jaywalking. These are violent offenses. He had an active warrant. He was trying to evade police. Once he reached into the vehicle, this is a man who had a history with the police, with brandishing firearms. Once he reached into the vehicle, he posed a clear and reasonable threat, and that threat was neutralized. That's exactly what the police are supposed to do. You may not like it. I posted on my Facebook page the video of the Pennsylvania shooting, which to me is a very similar situation. Two police wrestling with a man who ends up breaking free. Those officers chose not to pull their firearms, continued to try to tase the man. They were not able to subdue him. He reached into his car, pulled a weapon, and shot both of those police on the side of the highway. So it's very easy to watch the video of the officer shooting this man and saying, oh, this is racially motivated. It's another bad shoot. But we have to put these things into perspective. We have to look at Jacob Blake for the man he was, the man that he is, and look at this thing with some level of perspective. We can agree to disagree. Certainly. We can disagree on it. You may have a different opinion. You may say the shooting was completely unjustified and there's going to be an investigation. But I think that when you take in the whole thing, there's at least room for reasonable disagreement here. Anyway, the Milwaukee Bucks are boycotting the playoffs. But I want to bring something else to your attention. The first week of NBA playoff ratings down 20% from last season. Uh-oh. The NBA playoffs inside the Orlando bubble averaged 1.875 million viewers for the first week, down 20% from last season per data from Real GM and Showbuzz Daily. Industry insiders mostly chalk up the decline in viewership to the abnormal season, with games being played in August and often during the daytime hours when television viewership is generally down across the board. That's a terrible excuse, NBA. Terrible excuse. Let me explain. First of all, there's nothing else for people to do. Businesses are partially closed. There's tons of unemployment. People are waiting for the NBA to roll around. But come on. I look at this boycott as a way to avoid embarrassment, quite frankly, for the NBA, who chose to go heavily woke before this season started and have absolutely tanked their ratings. I think there's a lot of people who, I've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it on social media. A lot of people saying, I'm done. I'm done with these multimillionaires, virtue signaling, and whatever. I don't care what your view is of being woke, of the far left, or of any of this stuff. But in our current climate, people are just dying for sports. They've been waiting for sports to come back. We've been quarantined. We've had businesses being closed. We've got massive unemployment, and the ratings are down 20%. I really believe that this is more a move on the NBA to avoid embarrassment than to keep trudging along and having people stop watching and have to acknowledge the fact that they decided to get woke, go broke, and they're just going to call it. I don't think you're going to have NBA playoffs. I think it's going to be done. I don't think the NBA is coming back this season. And I think you're going to see when the NFL season kicks off, you're going to see a lot of the same thing with viewers tuning out. I think the NFL is planning on playing the Black National Anthem ahead of the American anthem. And let me just say that Black people are Americans. It's everybody's national anthem, but that's neither here nor there. I wanted to hit on those three things. A little short today. Got distracted. Had a lot going on today, so it's a little bit of a shorter episode. If you're just getting here, please go back to the beginning. Take a look. I appreciate those of you who jumped in and stuck around. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Share if you thought the content was good. Subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. It is all greatly appreciated as I am slowly but surely trying to grow this channel. I will be back tomorrow, better prepared with a longer episode. But like I said, I just wanted to jump on here and cover those couple of things quickly. So thank you all very much and have yourselves a great night.